All right. Welcome back to another episode. I'm Ronen Passar. With me is Ryan Reisert, and we are the Outbound Operators. We're going to talk about two things today. The first thing is the math of markets, specifically in Outbound. And as we get into it, we're going to also talk about what do I do when I get the not me? How do I handle that to make sure that I actually understand if I'm talking to the right or wrong person? Because this is often an area that is misunderstood by less skilled and experienced SDRs. So stay tuned with us. If you do enjoy this episode, hit subscribe. Feel free to drop a comment if you want us to cover anything specifically next. And as a bonus, if you want to get your hands on our math of sales model that we talk about, because we use this with all of our clients, just reach out to either one of us. We'll set up a time where we can show you how to use the model.
How do we actually know if we're on track or not, and the importance of staying consistent,
Yeah.
not sitting there and letting your emotions get in the way, but letting data drive your decisions. Are we on track? Do we have the right list? Is the right
Right.
message, or is it me as a rep that has an issue delivering? Which, if you have a team of even just two and you're running our system, everything normalizes, right? You look at the dashboard and you go, what's the connect rate? That should be normal if we're all calling from the same list. What's the completion rate? Should be normalized if we're all calling from the same list. If it's not, what do we have here, right? This is likely a rep problem, right? Our connect rate's off, our completion rate's off. Rep might be doing something to be manipulating call deliverability, ghost dialing, which is a big problem, or maybe they have a technical issue. I usually go towards ghost dialing, but I know you like to go towards
User error.
it's a technical problem. No. You're
like
not calling
I like
through to voicemail.
I like calling it user error because it could either be intentional or unintentional, but something the user's doing is messing up the connector.
That's because you're the nice guy. You're always taking the nice guy route. I'm a realist, and I take the
That's what you're calling me a non-realist, Ryan? Is that what you're saying?
yeah. So anyway, let's
Basically, uh-huh. All right, so we're going to talk about
people don't have businesses don't have problems, they have people. Let's just be honest.
all right, so we're talking about the math of markets,
hmm
how the math of markets creates a understanding for what to actually expect when you're deploying outbound as far as what kind of results should you get, what is good, what's bad. And with that frame, understanding what is normal for a typical market when you're thinking about outbound results, that can help you understand if you're on track. Wonderful. If you're off track, here's how you would diagnose. We go into these areas to diagnose.
Yep. So in the last video, we started to introduce the idea of completions, the importance of completions, why we think about completions. It allows us to get to disposition science. Disposition science gets us all of the yeses, the nos, the not me's, not nows, and the importance of that comes down to this. The whole point of all of this is so that we can always stay on track to ensure that we're targeting the right people, we're saying the right things, and we have the right butts in seats doing the right work. And then, of course, follow up, right? The power of follow up. The idea is in any given market at any given time, this is Chet Holmes' buyer's pyramid from the Ultimate Sales Machine. 3% are buying now, 7% are open to it, 30% are not thinking about it, 30% don't think they're interested, and 30% know they're not interested, right? Flip that on the funnel. You're essentially going after at any given time in outbound. About 40% are going to be receptive to hearing you out, right? That's the buying now, open to it, not thinking about it. You're not going to get through the people that don't think they're interested, no, they're not interested. It's just the math. So let's just start there, right? 40% for those of you who can't do fractions with percentages, that's 4 out of 10. Or said differently, this is really important, that means 6 out of 10 times you're probably going to get people to say, no, I don't think so. No, I'm not interested. No, that's not, no, right? We get a lot of that. And by the way, that's normal. It's normal, okay? Don't go to these people that post online and say, like, you got a 33% booking rate. It's like, yeah, if you're calling people that have raised their hand and are aware of your brand
Yeah.
and you've already worked them, sure, not a problem. I'll show you data on that being the case. Again, we share the one Firefly results, which is insane. Like, you book a meeting every fucking 10 dials. Here we go. Bam. So if we look at this visual, this gives us the idea of any given market at any given time. And it also helps us set the expectations of what to look for when we look at our disposition science. How many should be yeses, nos, not me's, not nows? Again, 6 out of 10 times you're getting kicked in the teeth. You're getting told not interested. I don't think so. That's not for me. We already have a vendor. We're super happy. That's to be expected. Let's think about this like baseball. I'd like to use this analogy for top of funnel all the time because there's no better example of this.
Like
in
batting
baseball,
300, you mean?
yeah, in baseball. So let's look at the math, right? So 1 out of 10 times you're going to get a pretty positive yes. This is a activation or a meeting. Activated is so a meeting is an activation, right? One out of 10 times. That's like a big leaguer that is going to get cut pretty soon. They're not going to bat very often because they're getting at bats. It's kind of average, but you can't be average in the big leagues, right? That's 100. You're batting 100, right? Now, if you can get 2 out of 10, which is where you're starting to move into 20% of activated, which is our target. This is meaning people that are not necessarily booking, but they're showing a strong level of interest, and with some follow-up, we should get them pretty immediately. Now you're starting to make the team. You're on the roster. You're making hundreds of thousands of dollars, and eventually might make it to even $1 million contract because that's pretty consistent, right? People who bat 200, go look at the MLB right now. Most of them bat in the 200s. Okay, that's good. It's better than average, right?
Oh,
You're gonna stay on the team. You get to 300 where you have 30%. You are a
All-star.
Hall of Famer, All-Star, being the
Oh, well, I don't know about Hall of Famer, but
you're a Hall of Famer if you're in the 300s.
if your whole career, I think you got a good shot.
Not a good shot. You will be. You need to understand baseball. 300 is very high batting percentage. No one bats in the 400s over the course of a career, right? Now, if you are batting in the 400s, you are the best of the best. Like I mean, I don't know what
Babe Ruth.
No, not Babe Ruth. The guy that got banned for betting, the Cincinnati Red guy.
Oh yeah, Pete Rose.
Pete Rose. Pete Rose, the best hitter of all time. You can look up his stats. We could pull this in. I don't think it's 400. It's probably sub 400. Okay, so it's a really good analogy, and what that means is just like a baseball player, right? You have to step up to the plate, and you're going to swing at the good ones, and you're going to expect that you're going to strike out sometimes, and that's okay, right? In any case, let's get back to the point I'm trying to make here. When you know that's the math, 1 out of 10 times, very average. 2 out of 10 times, you're playing in the game. You're in the game. You're making the team. You're on the roster. That's what we're shooting for when it comes to what percentage of our outcomes should be really strong yeses. Now, when we get into the not me's, not now's, and even some of the no's, that's where we can start to look at what distribution do we have in the 80%, right? So 20% should be activated. The other 80% are going to be a combination of, not now's, no's, not me's. And if you start to look at your breakdown of dispositions, you can quickly highlight, again, if we're on track, right? Again, if at least 30 to 40% of your completions are priority follow-ups, meaning they're not nows and you're going to be following up with them, you're on track. If it's less than that, you've got a problem, right? You either have a targeting problem or you have a messaging problem. And that's where you can get into some of the things we covered before, where a lot of people, this is one of the number one dispositions that we see, which is a not me, and that not me is not necessarily true. I'm working on this a lot. As you go from a 101 caller, where we use this example of me calling for marketing and getting referred to IT, and it's like, no. The problem we solve is for the marketer. We want to talk to the marketer first, then we'll bring in these other folks. That happens across the board, and it's what most organizations really, really struggle with junior callers, right? 101 calling, you're going to get the stuff, you're going to get the low-hanging fruit, but you're going to miss out on these not me's that are actually the people you want to be talking to right now, and you got to pay attention to that. You can get some signals, but you have to be careful with where you're getting referred, and you want to take a step back, help them understand that, no, I'm reaching out to you specifically because you're in this role, right? I'm doing this with Quack right now, the customer success folks. Some of them truly are not the right me's. It's like, no, we don't handle tickets. You should go to support. But some of them are like, no, I do kind of oversee this stuff. So by taking a step back and being like, well, do you have any oversight of this stuff? Is CSAT important, etc.? Like, yeah, then I'd be open-minded to learn about this, or I'll be a champion. Actually, I know this is probably a problem. And that's the difference between a 101 caller and a 201 or a 301 caller, is being able to not take that initial, that's not me, it's somebody else, but saying, hey, well, actually, I was reaching out to you specifically because you look like somebody at another company who has these problems. Is that you? And there's some frameworks that you can work on.
Yeah, and Ryan, I think the thing to highlight there for anyone listening who's actually a caller is when you hear an initial, yeah, I don't handle that, that's not me, I'm not going to be the best person for it. The gut reaction is to accept it and move on, but that's not the best approach. What you want to try to do instead is reconfirm, and one way I like to do it is, oh, okay, I just want to make sure I'm clear. I have you as this title, so I have that right, yeah? Okay, so that means you don't oversee or deal with this challenge, this pain point, or this process. So if I'm selling call blitz to an SDR leader who can easily be a champion for call blitz, they might say something like, yeah, I just leave the team. I'm not the person you want to
I'm
talk
not a
to. You
decision
want to talk
maker.
to
Not a
you want to talk
decision
to the
maker.
CRO or my CFO. Oh, okay, I understand. Like, so just to be clear, you are the director of sales development, right? Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. And you don't oversee, or you're not involved at all with decisions around like what tools your team is going to use every single day when they're cold calling?
Yeah, or a better way, even a better way to approach that is not even focus on the tools yet, but it's the problem. So you are the director of sales development. Yeah, that's right. So you don't have any oversight of the results from the SDRs. Like you don't have any like
Yeah.
personal like their results don't matter to you. That's a better way to approach
I have a
that.
call that's actually somewhere on YouTube I got to track down where I got a CEO on the phone over 2 years ago when I had an agency I was running, and we were doing cold caller training and whatnot. And at one point, the guy literally said to me, "Yeah, I'm just not the best person for this." And I go, "Well, sorry, you are the CEO, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." I go, "Well, look, I don't know how you." I couldn't be the right person for this. I'm going to call BS on that. And he just started laughing. And he goes, well, no, let me clarify. I do care about pipeline because that was
Of course. Yeah, of
the
course.
initial message I had. I do care about pipeline. What I meant is like my chief growth officer will oversee these decisions, and it's going to
Yeah,
be better if you start with her. So why don't I introduce you to her? And 30 minutes later, I was set up with her.
right. I mean, I have plenty of examples right now with Quack. I mean, literally today, the meeting I scheduled in the Blitz with the group was exactly that. It was a success manager. It's like, yeah, that's not me. And I was like, well, let me take a step back. You are the customer success manager. Yeah, that's me. So you're not dealing with anything around ticketing and support. No, well, I do have some. And I was like, okay, so do you know if you guys are using any AI like Zendesk? Actually, we're looking into it right now. We're thinking about going to Intercom.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool. Well, it sounds like this might actually be a great time for this. They generalize, we specialize. And he's like, well, hold on a second. I'm actually in the process of like running some stuff ourselves. So I'm really interested. Like, how does the model work and how do you train it? I was like, I don't want to botch this. I'm not going to sit you with our CEO. He's like, okay,
Yeah.
great. It took the meeting for Thursday.
I'm
It was
laughing,
like very
Ryan,
quick.
because that's a perfect example of exactly what we're talking about. Like we have to understand, like, take a step back into human psychology just for a second. You have to understand how the brain is wired when it comes to decision making. There's Nobel Prize winning science behind this that is made popular in the book Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. And what he talks about are these two systems in our brain, one and two. One is automatic. You're not aware of it. It's just running. And because of that system, as humans, we can function every day without having to think about thousands of micro decisions. I'm not going to get into it further than that, but in the cold call, it does apply because the initial thing that is happening on the cold call, as it is with any decision that someone faces, is the brain is always trying to decide, can I automatically respond right now, or do I have to engage? Because your body doesn't want to
Right.
start using resources to engage.
Correct.
So we call the way to go from automatic to engage a pattern interruption, because the pattern is what sets the person on that automatic path.
Yep.
That's why in our script, a different video we have these built into what you're saying. However, this comes back around even mid-pitch, mid-call. Someone can suddenly hear something, and in their brain, the pattern just went trigger again,
Yep.
automatic response. That's not me. I'm good.
Well,
But in reality, if I break the pattern and go, wait, let's slow it down and engage system two. So you're not this title? Yeah, I am that title. And do you care about these challenges? Are you involved with this process? Is this something that affects your team or what you are responsible for doing? Yes, it does affect me. Now we've re-engaged them back into system two thinking. They're with me, not trying to automatically respond and in what most people call a brush off or trying to get me off the phone.
right. And I always use the example of the business consumer example where you walk down the mall. You're in the mall and you're walking down the halls and there's those kiosks, especially like during the holidays, and people are like trying to push stuff
Hey,
to
try
you.
the lotion.
Hey, try this, and it's just like no.
The Israeli,
So
sir.
yeah, so that's one example where it's really like you have that stiff arm. Okay, so that's like the cold call. Those are the people not thinking about it, maybe even to know they're not interested, don't think they're interested. But then let's even take it down to the ones that are open and buying now. Now you actually walk into the store that you're actually there to buy some shit, and a sales rep walks up to you and they say, "Hey, can I help you today?" "No, I'm just looking." That's the immediate response. "No, you're not. No, you're not." Right?
No, you're
The little
not.
video. You're not. Right? But that's literally the human nature. That is everybody. We're wired for this. And so if you're a cold caller, you have to understand that is the native reaction. So in order to get away from that stiff arm, you have to work on how you're using the question. Now, if the sales rep walks up and says, "Can I help you today?"
Yeah.
Which is kind of like we do it, you're like, "No, I'm good. I'm good." But if they came up and said, "Well, what brings you into the store today?" Two different it's the same general initial thing, but more people are going to be more likely to say, "Well, I'm here to look for these things," right? Like instead of saying, "How can I help you?" which is very generic and I'm going to get the brush off, say, "What brought you into the store today?"
Yeah.
It's the same general thing that we're talking about here, which is you are a customer coming to the store, right? You see? You're breaking that pattern by just using a couple phraseologies that can reset the system. Be like, "Oh, no. Thank you for helping me direct me back into the path." And when you start to use questions, there's times when you want to go for no and you're giving them the option to say no, but there's also times when you want to use yeses to also break it. Right. And so this is like, again, we're now getting into 301 and 401 calling.
Yeah.
But to your point, like when we want to build momentum, sometimes we're going for some yeses to build momentums. Like there's a pattern of if they say yes, then they say yes, they say yes. There's other times when you want to give them the option to say no, depending on the risk of the ask. Right. So it's not risky to go and confirm their title and their role. It is risky to say, "Would you like to take a meeting?" Right. So you would want to go for no when you ask for the meeting, right? Would you be opposed to? Versus, are you this title, this company? You are this person, right? Long story short, when we get back to the science here, we have to understand the breakdown of these dispositions in such a way to understand if we're on track. Now, we covered 10% being kind of average. If you're there, you might be on the roster for a little bit, but you're kind of at risk. As you start to learn some of these strategies, getting better as a rep, that's one of our levers, we can start to move into that 20-25% range. And or if you're good but it's not happening, now we can start to look at list and message, right? Is it the people that we're targeting, or is it the actual information that we're providing in our messaging? And we just talked about messaging. Sometimes messaging is the structured conversation advertisement that we're sending. Other times it's this open dialogue, which is the rep, right? The skills. In any case, when you look at the distribution here, most people look at that and they go, "Man, that just sounds like a lot of work. It's challenging." But here's the key, and this is where we'll move into our next session, because we were talking about this pre-show about wanting to talk about follow-ups. But this is why we say the fat stacks are in the circle backs, hat tip Sean Robinson, or the fortunes in the follow-up, or the money's made in the follow-up, or whatever you want to call it, right? You are only going to get so many people from an initial call into this, the yeses and the maybe not nows. But with follow-up, you begin to actually move not just the 40%, but you can also start to move into the 60% over time. Now, with the 40% that are the not nows or even these activations, we will see about a 1.5 to 3x increase in our conversion rate to activations. Activations being, a meeting scheduled or a further real deep dive into that intrigue, interest, information, or intent, right? Because in the follow-up, we're now building momentum in the conversation. We have a previous dialogue that we can reference, and we're going to be able to get much deeper into the conversation to determine if this is sales ready, right? And so over time, as you build your buckets, the top of the funnel is a slug. It is challenging, right? We can expect in the beginning 10% we're roughly on track, 20-30% in the activation range we're doing okay, but as we move into the follow-up list, we're going to start to see much higher results. If you're booking at 10% cold, you're at a 15 to almost 30% in follow-up. And if you don't believe me, we can show you some receipts. Maybe we can post a couple of people calling activations. I know we got the one from David who was only calling activated leads, and the results will blow your mind, right? It's like a meeting every literally three conversations in that 33% range. So the math never lies, and here's the key: you need to know your math of sales.
Yeah.
Right? There are some benchmarks you can see if you're on track, but your math of sales is your math of sales. And so when you look at this from a leadership perspective, if you're a leader listening to this, what you need to do is get your team in. It can't just be one. You want to have multiple. You need to run the process in such a way where you standardize the cold list, and everybody on the team is calling from the same pool of data. This is going to help you immediately identify rep behavior issues and also any list issues and message issues so much faster. If you start to use disposition science behind it, it's also going to help you. But that cold list goes to everybody. Now you got multiple people calling, and you're going to look at what's our connect rate, what's our completion rate, and based on the breakdown of those completions, we can immediately identify, do we have a rep issue, a message list issue, or a list issue? And by calling from a pool of data, you can spot these things so much faster. And then, of course, the Disneyland FastPass, all this is a pool of data of only people that pick up the phone. You're going to get information that would take most teams months, or you'll never get to it because you're all over the place. You're relying on individual feedback on a very small set of data and feelings. And then the last thing that is super important here that we didn't address yet as we wrap things up is you want to make sure that the reps are delivering the same message consistently in the beginning, right? You can use our framework, you can use your own, but use the same opener, use the same transition, you call to actions, all that stuff, the general pitch outside of open dialogue, it should be the same. Because then you can look at, are we on track or not? One of the things that reps will do is they will start to adjust after 2 or 3, maybe 4 completions where they're getting no, and people hanging up on them or whatever.
They drift.
And they're thinking, oh my gosh, you know what? This audience is so hard to reach. They don't appreciate it, and then they start to drift, and then what happens is you don't get consistency, right?
Yeah.
And the reality is, again, the math will play out if you stay consistent with your message. If you make adjustments too quickly, you're not going to get enough data to know how to drive the levers. And this is super, super important. When you know that you're likely going to get 6 hard no's for every 1 or 2 strong yeses, and you're only having 2 or 3 conversations a day in 1 week, you're only going to get that like 1 or 2 strong or positive outcomes. And it's draining. The reps make the decisions too quickly to make adjustments. And then what that does is prolong your ability to get to the yeses that you would have otherwise if you would have stayed consistent in your message. I'm telling you right now, a blind squirrel will get a fucking nut if you're decent on the, like, these are the right accounts, these are the right people, and this is the general value proposition. If everyone's consistent with that, you should see 1 out of 10-ish at least activated, right? That won't happen if you're making adjustments over and over again.
Yeah.
I mean, you just fall into them, man. But this is a problem. So that's where is, as a leader, pool data, consistent message, run your math of sales, get that benchmark. And then once you have enough completions, which is generally 50 to 100, will give you a good read on this, then you can start to make some adjustments. But it's super, super important that you get your reps to be consistent with that initial message so you can measure properly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to bring this entire episode home, the underlying impact of what this all means is really simple when it comes to doing outbound cold calling, but really outbound sales of any kind. We've said this in previous episodes. We're going to say it again today and probably even in the future. You cannot control your buyer's readiness, timing. All you can do is reach your target and have a conversation and learn where they are right now. The whole point of good outbound is that you're going to follow up. So have the conversation, document what happened, and then do the follow-up when it comes due on time, and don't skip it. And make sure that you're doing the follow-up and the next one and the next one. We have consistently seen the data. Follow-up conversations, not even activated, just high priority follow-ups, convert at a higher rate, 2 to 3x higher than your standard first conversation. Activated follow-ups convert way higher, like somewhere between 20 to 40% of those become a qualified opportunity. So you have a lot of gold in the follow-ups. Outbound is a long game. Don't be like, fret, don't be worried if you get a no or a not now when you initially reach someone. Document what you learned and come back around and keep doing that. And you'll go through companies at different time. You'll find the ones in the top 10%. And if you're really good, you might be able to expand a little bit into some of the not nows, but that's it. Work the system, build the list, score the list, call the list, and follow up. That's the name of the game.
Make the list. Know what to say. Know which people actually answer the phone and which ones don't. Call the people who actually answer the phone. Follow up, and let marketing do the rest.
That's right. We're Outbound Operators. If you enjoyed this episode, if you made it this far, hit subscribe. Let us know if there's any other topics you want us to cover in future episodes. I'm Ronan Passar. With me, Ryan Reisert, and we'll see you on the next one.
Peace.